Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing very well today for another interview, and this is going to be A, very different, and B, hopefully very interesting. We've got Vinedog here, who is, am I right in saying you're the lead of the group that is making the upcoming Gripen mod in DCS World?
So hey there, my name's Dan. I'm one of the heads of the Lion Eagle Productions. That's what we call ourselves, and we are currently working on the community Gripen mod. Should be releasing soon.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, right. So let me go right back to the beginning. A lot of people who watch this won't be kind of DCS heads and won't understand. So you get two different types of aircraft in DCS World. You get modules, and those are things that you buy with your money. They're officially sanctioned by ED, not necessarily made by ED, but officially sanctioned in the game. And then on the other side, we've got this massive explosion of something called mods. Mods are freely available. They're made by just nice people, basically, who are willing to make aeroplanes and essentially give them away within reason for free for people to go and use. And this is on the mod side, so this is not a module, this is a mod, and there's all sorts. There's Raptor ones out there. I've got a whole list of about 50 or so that I've looked at now, all varying qualities. Some terrible quality, some of them really high quality, depending on how much work people put into them. So with that out the way, we've got a series of questions to give this some structure. You guys, the valued viewers, has given us the questions. I've got 23 here that we've got, and I'll just be doing some general questions as well. And finally, we've got Simba, who's kind of our main mod guy in GR. Say hello, Simba, if you can.
Hello, viewers.
Right, that's it. Anything from you? Do you want me to, shall I call you Vine or Dan?
Yeah, call me Vinedog.
Vinedog, right.
Or Dan. I don't know, whatever.
Anything from you before we just start blasting through questions and see where it goes?
Let's just see where it goes, I guess.
Okay, first, just a couple from me. Whenever I pick up a mod to do, I just do small little friendly reviews, nothing serious. The first things I think of are, okay, one, flight model. Is it SFM or EFM? What are we going to see in this case?
We're going to see initially an SFM. It's going to be a modified SFM. So you're not going to be flying an F-15 that looks like Gripen. You're going to be flying something that, to the extent that an SFM can provide, should fly similarly to a Gripen. We have a current pilot in the Czech Air Force who flies a Gripen. He's got permission from his officer, so he's sharing some information with us. But ultimately, you're going to have an EFM at a later update. We've already started working on one. SFMs are not terribly difficult, but EFMs are some of the most difficult aspects of doing a mod. So it takes a lot of time to get done right. And we decided to release something that's clean to get into the community's hands initially, and not just hold on to the mod until it's completely done. So we're releasing it in stages. Initially, going to have an SFM, a modified version, and then we'll get an EFM at a later date.
Roger, and that seems to be the usual route for just about all of the quote-unquote big mods, the serious mods that are coming out. You put an SFM that's roughly right, roughly around the edges, roughly about right, and then get various other things working, and then when they're ready, they're going to go to a more complex flight model, which is great. The next question people are going to ask are, is it an interactive cockpit? Can you go in, can you turn the dials, flick the switches, or is it going to be like a F-15 where it's passive only?
So it's more or less a similar answer. Initially, you're not going to have a clickable cockpit, but we have a version ourselves that the cockpit is fully functional, and it takes some time to kind of iron those kinks out. So eventually you're going to have a clickable cockpit, but initially it's going to be just a regular FC3 style cockpit. You won't really be able to click anything.
Roger. And note that Vinedog sent me some pictures through as well, and I'll be just showing them as we go through. I mean, pictures look really cool. I'm looking at this cockpit now. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not as good as like a F-14 Tomcat module with all the lovely textures, but it looks really good. It looks it looks the next stage down. So I'm chuffed about that, at least, that you haven't just stuck a flanker cockpit in it or something like that, and you made the effort to get all the modeling. So that's good. Okay.
Well, on that front as well, if you don't mind me interjecting, we've already begun retexturing the entire cockpit. We have the ejection seat already done. If you want, that's one of the pictures that I sent you. So the whole thing is going to go over a retexture. But again, we preferred, because the level of detail we want to get the cockpit at is going to take some time. We have one of the best texture artists I know working on it, Wolf Thrower. But yeah, you know, in the spirit of trying to get something in your hands, so you're not eating your heart out for a whole year. You know, we're going to give you with, you know, basic textures that look pretty good, but it'll look way better from here on out. That's for sure.
Roger, yeah. We're just, for instance, looking at the seat at the moment, and that's top, you know, along top quality stuff. So I'm chuffed with that. I think that looked great.
Yeah, homie knows what he's doing.
Okay.
He's really good.
I'm wondering where we go next. I'm tempted to start asking you questions about your team, but I know we're going to get in. I know we're going to start talking about that a lot. What I think I'll do in that case is go for the viewer questions, and we'll tackle the kind of team and the more mod making in general a little bit later, because I don't want to use all the time. I'm just talking about that. So let's start with the value viewer questions. One, the question you know everyone asks, of course, when am I going to get it?
Well, you're actually going to get it in about a week.
Wow, how about that?
Yeah, the 6th of the 6th, 2021. So
yeah.
We've got a few days to go. And I did this. I tried to gain some experience from other modding teams that I wasn't a part of and was a part of. And one of the most important things is revealing something at the right time. If you reveal something too early, then you kind of lose the wave, or you kind of ride the wave into the shore too early. So, you know, we held off on revealing what we had until we knew that we were a few months away from being able to actually put something in people's hands.
Roger. No, that's great. Yeah, you sound like you know what you're doing, which is good. Okay, next question. These jets are obviously new and very advanced. How do you, I'm going to talk about this later, but how do you manage to get information to put into DCS when so much of it is classified?
It very much depends on the plane, and it also depends on what you're trying to do with the mod. So, for example, I don't really need to know how the Gripen data link works, because DCS already knows where everything is. So if I can kind of figure out a way to project the knowledge that DCS has on the screen in a way that simulates a data link, I don't really need to know how the data link works. For example, that's like a big secret. You also have limitations with what you can do with third-party modding that sometimes limits the extent to which you can make the plane accurate, and then you have the available information. So we are very lucky. We were able to get access to much more than I thought we would be able to get access to through our connection with this particular pilot, and also, you know, the fans. Some of the fans had some really, really awesome information. And so we feel like we have enough to get it to a fairly high level of realism. And also keep in mind, like, you know, very few people other than the actual pilots really, really know how this thing functions down to the bone. So we also ultimately, you know, we're not professionals. A lot of us are hobbyists that work on our free time. Also, a lot of the stuff that we're doing, we're learning as we're going along, depending on, you know, how much experience the modding team has. So, you know, the first thing is, you know, the fun factor, and does it feel like you're actually flying the plane? But there's also a lot that you can simulate to a fairly good degree. But again, the last thing is, you know, depends on the plane. That's also why we're doing the C. We have more information on the Gripen C than we do, say, on the E. Yeah,
absolutely. Follow-up question to that, just purely for my interest, because the Gripen is, you know, designed to be an export fighter. It's designed to be sold around the world, as opposed to, let's say, a Raptor, which, you know, is, I guess, a much older aeroplane, really, but it's almost impossible to get details on it. Do you think because it's an export fighter, it is, I don't want to say less classified, but easier to get information on at reasonable levels?
I'd say more it's like a 4th gen fighter or 4.5 gen fighter, and that really plays into, because, you know, it's a very advanced fighter, but it doesn't have like fancy stealth coding, and it doesn't have, you know, fancy heat reduction or all these, you know, new toys that the 5th generation planes have. But I imagine it's a combination of the two. Yeah, more or less.
Roger. Okay. Right. This is interesting in terms of making the mod, which is what we're going to be talking about a lot today, which is going to be really interesting for people. What software do you use to model the actual flight model? I mean, this is, so in this case, SFM is relatively simple. Can you just walk us through that briefly?
Okay, so the flight model coding, I'm not a coder on the team, so I'm going to be very limited in what I'm going to be able to say, and probably I have some mistakes in the way I feel like it goes down. But the way it was explained to me is you have sort of like a table, and, you know, you need a certain set of data points. And the more data points you have, and if you know how to plug them in properly, the more the plane behaves the way it should behave in different flight envelopes. But it's a lot of math, a lot of trigonometry. I believe it's C++ that do it. I might be wrong on the particular program, but you need to be a coder. you need to understand at least basic, if not intermediate level coding in order to get that done. And that's also a reason why we break up into teams, because each, the amount of knowledge and the amount of time it goes into making a particular mod is immense. It's hundreds of combined hours, and you need to have like fairly good amount of skill at different things. So what a lot of people end up doing is they pick like a field that talks to them specifically, if that's texture work or flight modeling work or Lua coding or 3D work, and then you find other like-minded people that have a different kind of skill, and you put a plane together. That's more often than not the way it goes. It's very rare that you have somebody that's able to like put a whole plane together by himself.
Right. And yeah, everyone else we've spoken to has said exactly the same. Very rarely do you have one guy who does everything. Everyone seems to have their own speciality within certain fields.
Oh, those monsters exist, but there's not very many of them. There's people that I know, that can put something very, very nicely together in what I feel like is not very much time, because they have all the time in the world and they're also super efficient. But there's not many people that can do that.
Roger. Okay, let's move on to the next one. We've got, thank you for taking on this task. As a vegan boy, I appreciate the work of Swedish craft and tech. My question is simply, why? I ask because the Gripen is a multi-role 4th gen jet, which there are already a number of. What made you want to work for free to bring the Gripen to us? Fair point.
Okay, so first and foremost, I feel like most of us who are active in this kind of a game in one capacity or another, we have an absolute passion for aviation. And, I used to, build model planes, and, just because I had the MiG-29 and the Sukhoi didn't mean that I didn't want, the Tomcat. Like there was always that other plane that you wanted. So no matter how many planes DCS is going to pump out, I'm always going to want that, like, other one that I don't have. And it scratches that itch, that, building a plane itch, but this time you can actually fly it, which is, like, way cooler.
Right.
I saw on the ED forums that, some guys were trying to put a mod together with the Gripen. I saw that VSN had put out a model. And so I just decided to, open a Discord and to just kind of organize it and see, who we had and who can do what. And so I kind of built, so it's not from the grassroots, but I just kind of organized something that was starting to happen organically and gave it structure and gave it direction and like filled, once I knew who I had, okay, so we're missing this. Okay, so let me get this guy and like he'll take over this part. And it just kind of took off from there. Why the Gripen specifically? Because it's a fighter jet and it's cool looking, and
Why do you need an excuse?
I don't really have a better reason than that.
Why do you need an excuse? Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
It's the coolest thing.
Yeah. Good answer. Okay. Here's an interesting one. What skills and training would you recommend for someone wishing to get into the modeling aircraft for DCS and similar simulators?
Okay, so if we're talking about modeling, like actually building a model, then I would start playing with not GIMP. GIMP is the Photoshop one. Blender.
Right.
I would start playing around with Blender. There's a ton of YouTube videos that teach you how to make basic objects. I'll include a link. I'll send Cap a link of the modding Discord. That there's if you read through it, you can see a ton of information that kind of points you in the right direction. That's for the modeling aspect of it. But there's also the coding. It depends on how much background coding knowledge you have, and depends on how much time and how good you are at math. Like, can you realistically get into the coding side? If so, Lua coding, basic editing, and stuff like that, I would start with. Livery-wise, that's how I got in. I got in through skinning. Photoshop, GIMP, if you don't want to pay for a subscription. And then, there's tons of tutorials on graphic design, how to work with layers, how to make a template. Those are the main categories. And I would try to tackle one first, because the learning curve can be fairly steep depending on what you choose.
Right. Rather than going for the whole hog and learning to do everything, where you probably burn yourself out.
It's like DCS. You get like an F5 first, and you kind of get your feet under you, and then you build your way up down on like an F16, and then like a Tomcat. Like you need to know how to fly a plane to use the Tomcat.
Roger. Okay. The next question leads us into nicely. Why don't we use your team for this particular mod as an example? The question is, can you describe the contributing roles of the development team and how they relate to each other?
Okay, so first and foremost, you need a 3D model. So you need a 3D modeler, which is kind of what I touched on before. Blender, play around with it. I would say if you're trying to get into it, try to make like a static object first. It's the simplest as far as 3D modeling shape is concerned. They tend to be the simplest as far as texturing, coding. It just needs to sit there. You just need to know how to get it in game. And I, for example, use tons of mods for static objects. It could be a ladder on an airplane or a guy with the cones or whatever it is. That's pretty simple. So you have the 3D modeling, and you got to know how to either get buy a model with a license and make it better, or try to build something from scratch. And that's one aspect of it. The same thing for the weapons. Everything that appears needs to be done in 3D first. Then you have to give it a texture, and so that's done in Photoshop or in GIMP. You also need to know how to do what's called unwrapping the model, and so it's essentially you map out a 3-dimensional object on a 2-dimensional plane, and it needs to be done in a way that an artist could feel comfortable using it. No warping, no smudges, things line up in a fairly good manner. So that's the texture side. Then you have the coding side, so how it behaves, what it can carry. So you have like the basic Lua editing. So there's a format in Lua that if you change certain things, you have control over certain aspects of the mod. But if you want to really get into the weeds of the systems and the flight model, then you need to have some level of coding knowledge in order to do that. And those are the main branches of what puts a mod together. Different teams have different amount of people on different things. Keep in mind that to make one aspect of the mod takes months. Realistically, from start to finish, you're talking about like a year, and that's pretty optimistic. But it also depends on like how far back are you going. There's different kinds of mods. There's a lot of mods that are private that use existing DCS coding, and that kind of does like 60-70% of the work, and you just kind of like change the other aspects of it. But those you see a lot less of due to copywriting laws and so on. And then you have simplified versions, because there's also limitations in the code. The code is it's not like an easy code to necessarily work with. Then maybe I can segue into that. What it takes coding wise as far as managing the code and building a mod, because that's pretty complex.
Yeah, there's well, just before that, just one tiny thing I picked up there. You spoke about using a model, and you used the word license. Can you just unwrap that a bit for us? What do you mean by license? What does that mean in the real world?
So not every mod you're going to see, that particular team built the mod from scratch. There's websites online where people make models of things and they sell them, and there's different levels of licensing. There's a license for personal use. There's a license for distribution if you do it for free. I mean, it gets more complicated than that. And it's spelled out for you if it's a good website, spelled out for you more or less. And you can also message the guy and tell him, hey, I'm trying to do this. What do you say? But you get a certain kind of a license, and that license dictates what you can do with the model. Because we're talking about intellectual property. Someone is producing this. This has value. So a lot of mods will, purchase a model and then just improve it. I'm talking about the non-third party. Third party probably builds theirs from scratch.
Roger.
But it saves you. It saves you a ton of time. So for X amount of money, you can get a license for something, and it could save you 3 months, 4 months worth of work. But it depends on the mod. Some of them do it from scratch. Some of them buy a model and improve it. In our case, we inherited our model from the VSN guys. You probably see Cobra. CD Cobra is probably on like half the mods you see running around. He just gets planes in a simple level in game, and then people get all excited, take that model and want to take it to the next level, and he supports it. And that's like an example of how cooperation really helps out, because we didn't have to build our model from scratch. We got a model and we improved it.
Yeah. Okay. You wanted to talk about, before we go into a bit more about the general modding, you wanted to go into the coding a bit further.
The coding isn't necessarily my forte, so I'm worried I'm going to say things improperly. But one of the things that I wanted to get across is the DCS code is not necessarily very hospitable to non-third-party modders. First and foremost is because certain aspects of the code are encrypted. Encrypted means that only someone who has a key or a license can actually see what's being done. It's like behind some kind of a wall. So a lot of the systems that DCS uses in the planes are hidden behind that wall. So a lot of what we end up being able to accomplish is done by roundabouts or loopholes in the code. So, the code is not the most hospitable to the modding community. And also, for the past couple of years, people are pioneering this stuff. There's not like a set roadmap that you have that says, okay, these are the boxes you need to check to have a working mod. So people are kind of like figuring it out as they're going along. And this also is another attribute to the community, is a lot of times when someone figures something out, he kind of like shares that knowledge. So, it saves time for the community as a whole, and so it allows the community to make better and better things, because it's less and less people having to start from square one, which is really nice. Almost like 99% of the time, if I reach out to somebody, he'll either point me in the right direction, sometimes he'll hop on board. It's fantastic. A lot of the mods are doing that. Anyways, the codes, it's complicated. It takes a lot of time to figure out how to do it right.
Just the follow-up question to that is, regarding the coding side of things, or I guess regarding the whole modding side of things, really, do you? What I never understood is, has ED deliberately made it so that it invites people to come and make these mods, or is it that people have, I don't want to say hacked, that's not quite how I mean, but just found a way of doing it and kind of fudged it? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Because I've never understood really if people are invited to make these mods. Obviously, there's no major problem with it, because otherwise they would have stopped them. But do you know what I'm trying to say? That's one thing I never really understood. Right. It's never written anywhere. There's no instruction manual how to do this. I was like, are they supposed to be doing this, or how does that work out?
So the thing is ED has kind of like turned a blind eye to modding, hasn't really like embraced it, but hasn't really done anything serious against it, and that's because the amount of time and effort it takes to maintain a piece of code like DCS is just unreal. They set the expectations very high, but and everyone only pays attention to the new stuff coming out. But the maintenance of it all is immense. Every time there's an update comes out, it doesn't only bust up the mods, it also busts up things on their end. And so if they want to continue pushing the ball forward, they need to focus on what they're doing, on what they have their name stamp on. And they can't really spend any kind of effort at this point in time to like walk us through or support something that isn't theirs. And that's more or less the feel I've gotten from them. They don't hate the modding team. They've got nothing against the modding team. If a cool mod comes out, they'll be the first to agree, hey, this is a cool mod. But, participating with a non-third-party team would just take so much effort and time that it's just, they want to focus on what, their actual product.
Which is fine,
But they have a roadmap if someone wants to do this professionally and actually work with them. And they do support those that do work with them. And at the end of the day, it's a business, and they need to put out a product, and they need to maintain that product, and that's where their focus is right now. And and I can respect that. A little bit more outreach would have been appreciated, but I predominantly like what they do. They make people's dreams come true, at least mine, and they give me a sandbox to play in. So maybe we can communicate better in the future. But I try to, I understand the limitations of it all.
Well, let's not forget as well, there have been examples of free mods like the MB339, and there may be more, I don't go that far back in history, that are now being translated from free mod to module. So, there is a history of this, working as a roadmap to getting into full-time, moduling, if that makes sense. That's the right thing to say. Why don't we then talk about, we were talking a little bit just before we turned the mic on, about teams. This is really interesting. Teams of, so before my understanding started to develop of how these, the people behind these mods started to work, it was always my impression that you would just have one guy per mod, and it was his baby, and he would do everything on it. That's clearly not true, maybe in some cases, but what seems to be more likely from what I hear from VineDog is that you have a great big pool of people like VineDog that just like making mods for the reasons that he's already said and more, and they choose mutual teams. I think this has got 6 people working on this, for instance, that go into form up and make these mods, and other ones I'm sure like the Skyhawk and stuff like that, and they work together. Can we talk about a little bit about the fact that there is this big pool of modders out there, how they interact with each other, and how these teams are created, where the spark comes from to do that?
Okay, well, I mean, I can talk about how it was, from about a year and a half on to right now. Um, so, I can't really speak too much to how it was before. And I also do realize that before mods tended to be behind like a name, like a, I guess like a guy, like a specific, one person. So it might have been like that before. But from what I've experienced this year, maybe because of COVID, a lot of people are at home. A lot of people are like, want to actually do something. And you see these groups forming up of like-minded people who like certain things, and you didn't even only see it with modding. You see it with like squadrons and demonstration teams. I mean, like all of DCS kind of is like going through this renaissance of people pooling together. Also people realize that it takes a lot to make a mod, and the overwhelming consensus is people want to share their work ultimately. And it's just, way easier to kind of like, pool your talents together and make something work. But mods are also kind of like a business. A lot of people want to start something up, and not everything you start up actually gets to the point where you can release it. There's a lot of trial and error. Sometimes you do your best with one team, it doesn't work out, you try it with another. But these things kind of form up spontaneously. You make a shout out, hey, I'm doing this kind of mod, or you kind of reach out to people that a community kind of builds. So now like I have like a group of people that I know. So if I need some of this, I reach out to him and I reach out to him. And like a lot of us are working on a bunch of things. But yeah, I hope that was clear enough.
Yeah, absolutely. What the only other follow-up, I don't think you'll be able to answer this, but the only other follow-up to someone else who's been in it since the beginning would be of course, well, how has this relationship of modders changed over the last, I don't know, 5 years, decade, whatever? Has it gone from single guys? Because I remember kind of when I got into it a few years ago, it seemed to be just single guys. Granelli would make this, Cuban Ace would make this, this man would make, or this guy would make this. Whereas, like you said, it's changed now. I'd love to, see someone who's been in from the start and actually, a modder, and see if things have changed for the better into a more community-based thing. I don't really want to put words into people's mouths because I just don't know. This is just kind of the feel I'm getting from it. But yeah. So anyway. Yeah, no, that's fine. Anything?
So I actually have my coder. If you want to pull him in from the public lobby, he's been modding for a good while longer. He can also kind of help answer some of our coding questions if you want to just pull him in.
Just give me a sec. Hello. Oh, is that Lanky?
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey,
yeah.
It's been a while.
I know him.
What's good, my dude?
Right. So Lanky's just come in. Thank you very much for that. Can you just give us a very, very quick background of yourself, just so we know who we're talking to?
So, my name is Lanky. I do quite a bit of modding in DCS. Recently I've been delving more into creating external flight models for different aircraft. I'm currently working on some classic British jets such as the Canberra, Sea Vixen, the Hunter, and I'm also working on a short Takana T1, and I'm also the owner of Foxtrot Oscar Simulation Designs, and the coder for the JAS-39 Gripen.
Roger. And how, sorry if you already said, but roughly how long have you been involved in this kind of thing?
Well, I'm 21 next month, and I started modding when I was 12. So.
All the time. Pretty much since the beginning of the game, like in its format. That's really interesting. Let me just think. Questions. So 2 things stand out for me. One, you seem to be following the same idea of Eindog in that you kind of dip in to various projects. Everyone's kind of seems to have a hand in different projects, which is great. And secondly, my question just to you is: has it always been like that, or has it changed over the last, I don't know, 10 years or something?
Well, for me personally, I'm not sure how the other guys feel, but for me, I have to have something to work on. Like, I cannot go more than 2 hours without working on something. So whether it'll be, I do some work on a Canberra flight model, and then I'll take a break. Once a few hours I'm past, I'm kind of like, I've got nothing to do. So I just kind of have this massive brain fart. I was like, oh, I'll make this. In fact, I had the idea earlier today because I was just bored out my nut. I was like, you know what? I might try and make a Formula One mod for DCS.
That's so
So
funny.
I I like to experiment quite a lot as well. Um, Dog knows some of my absurd creations in DCS.
Some masterpieces hiding in his hard
Yeah,
drive.
so some masterpieces hiding on my hard drive with yeah, we're
All
not
kinds
gonna
of other monsters.
yeah, we're not gonna go into it, but I create some weird things for DCS.
It's nice to,
Sometimes.
from my point of view, for someone who's kind of, well, pretty much twice your age, it's one thing I find really endearing about it is, okay, you're bored. Well, you know, I don't blame you at the moment, but rather than just sticking the telly on or whatever 21-year-olds do nowadays, I don't know. So just sticking the telly on, you're making something. I found that really just a good attitude to have.
Because personally, like, if you just sit around and your butt all day and just watch TV, like you don't really gain anything from it. Like,
That's exactly
yeah,
right. Yeah.
you kill time, but that's about it. But if you like make mods or if you do anything related to making something, if you're productive somehow, then you at least gain something out of it, whether it be experience, a new skill, maybe.
I'd say the most important thing is fulfillment. I feel like fulfillment is something
Yeah.
that's a bit more important than even happiness. Because you can see some really unhappy people that did something with their life and they're like pretty content.
Yeah, and like
Um,
recently, Foxtrot Oscar, we've become third party for Microsoft Flight Sim, and that wouldn't have been possible
Right.
if we were like, haha, I put this 3D model into Microsoft Flight Sim, cool, I'm now a third party dev. Like, you actually have to put work into it. I think if you're like me and you're just a workaholic with mods and stuff, you can gain that experience and it will help you set you up for something like that
That's
in
really
the
good.
future.
It's a really good point as well. When you look at, if you like, kind of quote unquote the big boys, look at, I don't know, Heat Blur or someone like that. You know, they didn't go to DCS World Modding University. They started exactly the same as you did when you were young and you were tinkering, and then rather than watching telly or whatever, they tinkered more and more and more until, like, you've become a third party in another game. They become a third party in this and other games. That's how you get there, right? By constantly pushing forward.
With DCS as well, obviously the modding community, we're not as privileged as the Microsoft Flight Sim community because we don't have access to an SDK. I think the closest thing we have to any type of SDK really is just the EDFM template. That's about it. But other than that, if you're modding in DCS, you either make it as a Flaming Cliffs 3 flyable, or you make the entire thing from the ground up, like code-wise.
Yeah.
And I think that's why so many people, why we see so many people making mods in DCS now, is because they're actually learning something without having anything to sort of guide them in a way. All they have is just what other people have done to guide them, and I think that's why people, well, myself personally, enjoy modding DCS, because you can look at
you're kind of trailblazing. You're figuring out as you're going along. That's also why a lot of planes start FC3, because that's like the only solid, like, framework a modding team has. And a lot of modding teams like are developing as they're developing. Like, they're developing with the mod.
And like Cap, you remember the Hunter I was working on?
Yep,
That actually started as a Flaming Cliffs remake flyable, and now that's his own whole standalone thing. I've actually gone and I've been able to make my own sort of aircraft template for making mods, which makes it a lot easier, because when you learn these skills, you could just start making your own templates, and you could share things with the community. And I do plan on sharing that aircraft template with the community at some point.
Cool. Yeah, that's what it's all about, boys. Okay, let's now we've got a really big party here. Could we do some more viewer questions? Get through some of them.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Go for
Okay,
it. Sure.
we've kind of already answered this, but anything to add? Basically, what are your criteria when you consider which aircraft you're going to model? We've kind of talked about, why did you choose the Gripen, but is there anything else to add to that?
It's like, it's like saying, what's your favorite color? You just get pulled in the direction of a certain plane and run with it.
Mm-hmm. And that's it. I'm going to do this because it's cool. I like it. I've always liked it. Let's get on with it.
Yeah, I mean, I started with my favorite plane. My favorite plane is, so I guess now is as good as time as any. I'm working on a dual seat F-16 mod.
Ooh.
It's fairly alpha stage at this point, but that's like my favorite plane. The F-16I. It's a plane I see flying over my house every day.
So what model is this? I'm a bit of a noob. Which F-16 model is it?
It's called the F-16I. It's an a dual seat F-16 we got from the United States, and then we just tossed a ton of our own avionics into it. One of the guys working on
Israel, right? Israel,
yeah,
right?
yes,
right.
Sir.
I was like, what on earth are you talking about? Yeah, oh yeah, of course, yeah. How cool, yeah. I love this. How Israel just takes planes and just mods them up. It's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. Well, we were interested in making our own jets, but the States couldn't have us competing with their F-16. So we're content with just modifying everything we get from the States.
Yeah, I mean, you've always done that. You've always gone your own way. I find that so cool.
You're not allowed to compete with us, so have our plane.
Well, we're part of the development of the F-35. A lot of core components of every F-35 that is going to get anywhere is going to have Israeli components in it.
So you can't
the helmet, for example.
So you can't. Let me get this right. You can't just take ED's thing, or yes, you can, can't you? Could you copy and paste it over them, or is it going to be separate somehow?
Well, okay, well, first of all, that's not as easy as it sounds. There's certain speed bumps that you run into getting that done. That's plenty of work in and of itself. But when you do latch off of ED's code, it does like 70-80% of the work with you. You enjoy the fantastic level of work that EV is able to produce, and you give it like your own little twist. And it's a little bit of murky waters when you do that. First of all, I don't want to compete with ED. If I can make a mod that supports them getting more sales, I'm more than happy to do so. But when you work with something that's theirs, you want to get at least a wink in the right direction, saying like, okay, that's okay. So that's why you don't see very many mods that mooch off of ED's code.
Yeah.
So that's why also a lot of time people take we could make a version of the Gripen that'll essentially have everything functioning in it if we utilize ED's code and just like change the 3D model and the textures and as much as we can change. But to share that with everybody, we made a conscious step to make something that content-wise would be significantly less, but something that we can share without crossing anyone in a red light, let's say.
Yeah. Roger. Okay, guys, let's push on to the next one. I don't really get this, but have you ever considered crowdfunding an aircraft model, something that is asked for time and time again, like a Tornado or a Buccaneer or a Draken or a Hunter? I don't understand what they're talking about crowdfunding. How do you read into that?
Okay, so it could be done in a couple of ways. For example, a modding community can open a Patreon, and anyone who's interested in what they're doing and wants to support them can donate into the Patreon. But as soon as you make money off of something, so we're no matter how we do it, if we release something into DCS and make money off of it, we're benefiting off of ED's intellectual property, and it's you need to do that the right way. You need to reach out to them in the right way, and you need to have an agreement, and they have a roadmap, and so. That's why accepting money in any kind of straightforward way is a bit of a no-go as far as non-third-party modding. If you want to make money, sign a contract with ED. But one thing that I was thinking of potentially doing is maybe we could have like a forum where if somebody wants to donate a model with a license, and they can kind of say like, hey, I've got this model. I want to put together a team who's interested in, if the right people hop on board, you can kind of grassroots start. That's the way a lot of mods start anyways. Somebody has a model and somebody has a cockpit and they just my model, your cockpit, let's make this. So I was thinking of making a place like that. But once you start making money off of someone else's product, you need to go through them. It's their product.
Personally, I wouldn't crowdfund a model, as Dog says, it'll kind of be touchy waters with the intellectual property and stuff. But um, for those wondering about the Hunter, it is coming. Don't worry. 2022 might be the time it's out.
Roger. Okay, yep. Right up my alley that will be. Okay, guys. Okay, let's push on. Other than being a currently operational aircraft and secret, well, you know, parts of it secret, are there any other things that would make an aircraft impossible to model?
Wind tunnel data, availability of wind
Right.
tunnel data, I'd say is the most important thing as far as a flight model is concerned. The more data you have on that, the better your flight model is going to be. And you know, information about the way certain systems work, and so on and so forth. Depends on the available amount of data.
Because, like, for the Canberra flight model that I've been working on, it will be cool to release it, but it will be difficult to release something accurate with something that's got so little data on it. Depending on the aircraft, you could get all the manuals in the world with all your data and stuff for aerodynamics and that. Or, if it's in the Canberra's case, you could just get a flight reference card and call it a day. So it really depends on what aircraft you're wanting to do, and as well, not only what aircraft, but for what country you're making an aircraft from,
Or what specific variant.
Yeah. So I tried. I wanted to work on a T-50B Golden Eagle earlier this year, which is like it's a South Korean made F-16 kind of.
I never heard of that.
So we had some reference pictures for the cockpit to make the cockpit model, but we couldn't find anything on the systems, so we couldn't. And that, unfortunately, we couldn't go ahead with it because we didn't have any data. So, as I said, it really depends on the aircraft you want to do and what variant and country you're doing it for.
Kind of dream world. I mean, I don't know which restrictions you have per se, but if there were no restrictions, which aircraft would you most like to model and why?
I'd like to model the plane that I'm working on right now.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that.
Yeah, the F-16D. But as soon as I get that done, I'm gonna, you know, I want a Mudhead. I know that Razbam is working on one, the F-15E/I, I guess, in that situation. Those will be my top two. But if there's another exciting project, I'm more than willing to hop on board. You know, just like I've got tons of model planes, I got, you know, tons of planes that I like. And you know, this is like a hobby now. This is, you know, like building planes. You know, you do this, you know, in your free time. It gives you joy, and there's always going to be that next airplane that you're going to want to make.
Yeah, Roger.
I wouldn't mind doing a MV-22 Osprey for DCS.
That would be dope.
Because
you couldn't, guys, because you've got nothing to follow. You've got no flight model that's going to allow you to vector that thrust, surely, right?
I feel like if we give, you know, Lanky enough time and motivation, you can get more or less anything done.
I have a flight model for an Apache. I've been toying around with the idea lately of getting thrust to rotate on an axis. That's still a very, very early concept I'm working on. It can be done because obviously the Razbam guys have done it with their Harrier.
That's fully external modelled. That's fully external flight model, isn't it? But yeah.
So it's an early concept in stages at the minute, but I do want to try and make a flight model that can go from vertical flight to standard forward flight.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think a lot of people would like to see that. Okay, guys. So, question to both of you, very kind of briefly, and we've already touched on this. How did you get into modeling DCS? How did you get into the modeling of DCS mods? Is it just in the bedroom, just trying things and it slowly gets more serious. That's what I'm kind of hearing from both of you.
For me personally, if I wanted something, I'll just make it. Like if there wasn't, say there wasn't a hunter in the game, then I'll be like, right, I want a hunter in the game. Then I'll just put a hunter into the game and call it a day.
Exactly what Vine said. Yeah.
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 But now I do it a lot more proper and a lot more serious than that. I'm not just like, oh, slap this mod in the game, call it a day. I actually take my time and think about what I want, and I'm like, cool, right. There's no CVIX in the game. I want to have a CVIX in the fly around.
Yes.
I put the model in, get all the model and textures set up, then progress with the flight model and work on some systems on the side, then progress fully with the systems. Sometimes the other way around, but that's usually how I work.
Oh, Joe. Next question, guys. It's quite an important one because a lot of people watching, you know, for neither a good nor a bad reason, just won't really understand why you're doing. So, hi, sorry about asking this. Why not put your skills and effort towards an official module that takes much longer to make but better rewarded for the virtual pilots and yourself and your team when the module sells? Your feed, come back to that.
Well, a lot of it has to do with what your capabilities are at. Making something on your own. You don't need to be the best in the world, but the moment you release something in any capacity, it needs to be of a certain level or above. And in order to play around officially with ED, you need to know what you're doing as far as modding is concerned. Before they even start talking to somebody, they want to see that you have something. And they have a particular criteria that they've released of it, more or less exactly what they want to see, as far as the amount of information that you have available to your team, as far as what kind of a model that you already have, as well, what kind of representation of systems you're able to do so far. So not everyone is at that level. And the other aspect of it is, not everyone can, deal with the time commitment. Some people, most, if not the vast majority of modders, they're doing this on their free time. And sometimes, the kids, and sometimes, the wife or school, and you can't commit, all the time in the same way. Sometimes in the summer you can do more or less. And when you do something officially, you need to commit not only to making it under a certain amount of time, but also to maintain it once it's already out.
Right.
Updates don't only bust, non-third-party mods. They bust third-party mods as well. With every company that provides a code, when you make an update, all of a sudden these bugs are going to start appearing. So when a team signs a contract, they need to maintain that product. I mean, I'm not going to name names, but any one of us who's been around knows what happens when a third-party product comes out and the team can't maintain. Yeah. So there's a level of commitment there that not everyone is willing or able to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you can't have fun.
Like personally, with me, I would love to go third party, but I wouldn't be able to do it all by myself. Like as Vine Dog said, it's not really a one-man army thing you could do. I mean, you can if you're like work for NASA or something, but
but you're in the right place though, guys, because you've got this lovely, like we talked about, you've got this lovely pool of developers isn't the right word, but these modders, and naturally groups will form like you've done, and like I said, that's how everyone else got started. So eventually, you're going to make mods that are so good, you're going to think, okay, we're probably ready for this challenge now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but one thing I also want to say is that ED has created an absolutely breathtaking sandbox for us to play in. It's unreal, especially with that last update with the clouds. I mean, you build a plane and you put it in the game, and you feel like you're looking at a Photoshop rendered picture.
Yeah,
as you're looking at the live game. I mean, it's just breathtaking.
It is getting that way, isn't it? It is getting that way.
It looks so good. And it's, and so, when you build a model plane with your dad as a kid, I mean, you look at it and you imagine. But here we have like a place where you can, eat with your friends, just like zip through the clouds in your favorite plane. And it's, it's a dream come true, especially in VR. So I want to say a huge, huge thank you for ED for putting this together. I mean, it's it puts you in a place that very, very few people can go, and they've done a fantastic job.
Okay, guys, segueing directly off that, why do some mods stop working after the updates. What is changing that makes them unplayable? So we've recently gone to 2.7, version 2.7, and I must admit I thought about 90% of the mods would just stop working. I thought everything, the modding community was just going to die, and I was wrong. A few, I don't know, 10% from what, because we had a little look around, stopped working. The others more or less working fine. Can you give us an idea from the layman's level of understanding, what is it in there that changes, that stops these things working?
So for aircraft like the MB339, which has an external flight model, so the way you do your external flight model with 2.7 compared to previous versions has changed very, very slightly with regards to the animations. So now the way they've done it is, I'm going to try and make this as simple as possible. They have changed the way you define animations in the external flight model source code. Whatever was used in 2.5 won't work properly with 2.7, and so that's why with the MB339 you can't see your stick or control surfaces from the cockpit move, like your stick, your rudders, your throttles, in 2.7, purely because of that small change in the EFM source code that ED have made.
That's just how it is, though, right? You just got to suck it up. You know,
yeah,
there's nothing we can do about it. It's just
no.
Roger. Okay. We've already heard from Lanky about this, but just quickly, if you don't mind, from Vine, what is your background? And, well, obvious, but do you fly DCS yourself?
Oh, sure. So I graduated a bachelor's in science and biology, worked as a trainer for athletes for a few years, moved to Israel in 2014, enlisted, served. I've been in the reserve since 2017. I fly DCS as a hobby. I've been flight simming ever since I was a kid. And so obviously DCS would be the progression for that. I love jets. If I could be a fighter pilot, I would be one, but you know, I've got glasses. So that, that wasn't going to happen. I got into modding because I've been using a ton of people's mods. DCS has got all kinds of mods, from missions to the skins, and I've been enjoying other people's work so much that, you know, during the first lockdown, like everyone, I was sitting at home and I wanted to actually kind of make something. And so that's what I did, and haven't been looking back.
Oh, John. The next is an interesting one. So when a mod is created, do you still have to obtain any permissions from, I don't know, Boeing or something, I guess? Or is it just a wild guess and no military is actually bothered with the result? Have you ever heard of any stories where, you know, intellectual property, or more interestingly, kind of classified data, people have got in trouble for doing mods?
So the community, for the most part, as far as I'm concerned, is very careful about what kind of information they get into. Every time somebody reaches out to me, and it happens, you know, with different mods reaching out to me, you know, exclaiming to be some kind of someone from somewhere that knows something, we're fairly cautious, especially given, you know what had happened in the past with people looking for information on certain planes. So we try to get what we can, but we're also, you know, we're not trying to get into, you know, looking at something we shouldn't be looking at. As far as third-party mods are concerned, you know, I guess they're held to a different standard. So, you know, I guess they kind of maybe handle it differently, but that's not something I'm terribly aware of.
Roger. I guess a question to both of you quickly, more or less in list form. What other mods are you guys working on / planning? And would you go so far as a clickable cockpit? I think that's talking about the Gripen, and not to begin with, but yes, you will be eventually, like you said. But yeah, what other mods or other projects have you got in the mill that you want to talk about?
Planes.
So I've got the dual seat F-16 mod coming out, collaborating with the VSN and a couple of other teams. My goal is to try to get virtually every version of, major variant of the F-16 that, at least has a visual change. So, that's the let's go down the list, the B, the D, the I, the F, the E, working with the CFT modding team. And we have some help with some guys from the Superbug modding team, and we're trying to get something similar where you can get virtually, all the models of the F-16 in game in one capacity or another. So that's something that I'm working on. It's very alpha. Once I have something solid to reveal, I'll reveal it. But it's something in the pipeline that I'm really excited about. There's some other things being worked on. But like I said before, mods are kind of like companies. A lot of exciting companies kind of spring up, and not all the time they're able to put something together. So, you try something, you see how far you can get it. And, once it's at a point where you're confident with it, you reveal it. And the ultimate goal is to share it, because, that's like the ultimate satisfaction, say, of an artist, is having somebody look at your art, glean something from it. If I'm allowed to be lofty for a minute. But yeah, that's more or less what's up. I'm also working on the F-35 mod. This is a mod that I wasn't with originally, but I took over to try to help out. This is a mod that we've had to almost redo from the ground up in the way that it was set up. It's a mod that's still being worked on. I know that there's not enough information being given out, because at the stage of where it's at, it's not at a sexy stage where it looks good in a screenshot right now. We're working on models and textures and basic coding, but it's moving forward. And Lanky, I guess, has got like a baker's dozen of things that he's working on at this point in time.
Every British plane ever used in the Cold War.
Pretty much.
Of course.
Well, if it's British, I'll happily put it in the sim. I don't care what anyone says. It's going in DCS.
I support.
I wouldn't even limit him to only British planes. He's got some things that aren't even British in there.
Come to think of it now, yeah, I do. I just have to think about what I've been working on. But personally, for FOSD, we've got the Hunter and the Tucano, both of which are coming along well in development. In fact, we're debuting the Shorts Tucano display at the Virtual Aero display.
Nice.
I think it's either in June or July, I can't remember. But if you want to see that in action, do watch the show online.
Cool.
If I get the link for where it will be streamed, I'll send it to you, Kappa. You can link it in the video. The Hunter is still being worked on. We are working with Hunter pilots on getting this right and proper. What else have I been doing? I've got a little Sea Vixen that I'm working on. Got a Canberra. I was working on my own Apache as well at one point.
I guess when when this has happened a few times now, people have been working on a mod for something, and then suddenly, the professional version has been announced. Do you just give up? Do you just throw it in the bin at that point?
No, not really, because I started working on the Apache after ED announced it. So for me, really, I just wanted to do it as kind of a learning curve for me for the external flight model side of things, and actually worked with Jinx as well on it. Jinx did all the animating on an external model. He's done a phenomenal job. He's animated all the swash plates on the rotor blades. He's done an amazing job with it. But yeah, for me personally, it was mainly just a learning curve for external flight models and understanding how they're written, like how you can write an EFM, what goes into it, what data you need, what you need to edit, etc., etc. But yeah, I think if I didn't do that Apache, I would still be a noob at EFMs.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Even if it doesn't make it to a final model solution, what you've learned along the way is the important bit, right? Kind of like we said before.
Yeah, so, yeah, as I said before, like, at the end of the day, if you're wanting to learn something and you can't, and you can't release something, like, don't let that bother you. Just take it as a learning experience. Be like, right, cool. I want to put, I don't know. I want to put a swordfish into the game because I want to see how SFMs would react with a tail dragger. You could use that as a learning experience, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's kind of what the Apache was for me.
Okay, guys. Fine. There's a couple I'm going to skip here because we've literally been over them word for word. So how long does it take to do a mod and who's involved? We've already gone over that. Which variant of the Gripen and why? It's the Charlie model, and it was because it's just easier to get data for, wasn't it?
Yeah, more or less. We're also working on a D model. One of the screenshots, it's the second plane in there. It's not going to be available for version 1, but we already have a D model. Lanky was generous in helping us get that model. So that's going to be in there at some future point as well. As far as an E, I mean, we can make something that looks like an E, no problem. Cockpit-wise as well. I mean, it's just like one giant screen. It's actually fairly easy for us to do. But to get something that actually represents the E as far as capabilities, that's a big leap. So we might make an E model, but I don't think it's fair to expect something that's, hardcore or high fidelity E. But we might do it, depending, how far we want to take it.
Oh, John. Okay. Very quick kind of snapshot answers for this one. Existing modules, not mods. Your favorite, each of you, please.
Ooh. I love the F-16. F-16 is
so
awesome.
do I. It's one of my favorite, if not the favorite.
Yeah, it's amazing. The F-18 is the plane that I know the most. But I've got almost all the major mods, and I've flown almost all of them. The question is what particular itch do I have on a particular day? But also most of my time now is with mods. The Gripen has fast become the plane that I've flown the most in the past few months.
Lanky. I can't answer it, so it's not that easy.
It changes every time I go on DCS and fly like an official module. It changes each time as to what's my favorite. So, but the modules I fly the most probably the F-16, F-18, and the Harrier. I've only recently bought the Harrier, but I have flown it quite a few times before I bought it with the free-to-play weekends.
The Tomcat is superb.
Yeah,
Tomcat is amazing as well.
I've not had a chance to try the Tomcat yet. As stupid as it may sound, in the comment section, please feel free to slate me for not having a chance to play the Tomcat.
One of the first memories I have is of a Tomcat in an air show my dad took me to. I swear it's one of my first memories. And it was like, as far as I can remember myself, I was like, this is awesome. It's huge. It's so loud. It's so fast. And I was like, how is everyone not in love with this thing? And so when the Tomcat mod came out, I had to get it. The Tomcat is just looks the way a fighter should,
It looks big. It looks mean.
But it's tough. It's hard. It's hard to fly right. You got to really know what you're doing.
Yeah,
to
very hard.
If you know what you're doing with the Tomcat, you're deadly. But if you don't know what you're doing with the Tomcat, you can be a sitting duck real quick.
And if Jester ejects before you, you've screwed up somewhere.
I don't know. You're in full afterburner. You pull the nose up, and you're like you're in space, and it's just like it's like, is this real? Could like imagine doing that. It's just unreal. Yeah. It's a ridiculous airplane.
Okay, guys. Yeah.
Map-wise, I think I like Syria. I like the Syria map.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, obviously I like it as well.
I'm waiting for Cyprus.
It's got the top half of where I live, about a half hour, 45 minutes north of where I live, and yeah, they did a pretty good job with it. It looks awesome, and it's cool to kind of protect your backyard.
Roger, guys. Back to the Gripen. So this is something I would have thought would have been asked straight away by everyone, but it wasn't. It's pretty much the last one, and that is about weaponry for the Gripen. One of the things the Gripen's known for, and and one of the reasons it's going to be exported so wide and far, is the amount of weapons it can carry. The compatibilities must be freaking endless. What weapons, at least on first release, are you guys gonna give it? You got a rough list or something?
Yeah, hold on. Let me pull up, if you will, the actual list. So the thing with the Gripen is it has the capability of carrying virtually every NATO weapon,
Right.
more or less, if I understand this correctly. But operational Gripens don't necessarily do that. So we put a focus on getting the actual weapons that it uses more often in game. So, for example, air to air, we have the IRIST, which is kind of their version of the Sidewinder.
Yeah.
It's modeled very, very nicely. It flies very nicely. It's not just another Sidewinder. But the actual real life IRIST has got features that in my opinion, would break gameplay. It's just overpowered. So it doesn't actually fly like an actual IRST, but it flies good. We've also got the Meteor in there with its own model, its own flight characteristics. It's got a very long range. It's one of the things that makes the Gripen lethal.
Give us some data on it, then. On the Meteor.
Would you have some numbers for me, Lanky? That's not something I know offhand.
Funny you ask. I actually have nothing on the weapons.
We have a separate guy, Current Hill.
Yeah.
Is what he's called on our Discord, and he did all the weapons to a really nice degree. We also did the Brimstone, air to ground missile. We've got 2 different kinds of drop tanks. Obviously the AIM-120 that it actually does use from time to time for certain air forces, the Sidewinders, rockets, dumb bombs, and so you're going to have an air-to-air version and an air-to-ground version. That's just kind of where we're at right now. At some point, we're hoping to get it merged into something that's multi-role, but that's a big undertaking coding-wise. We need to learn how to do some things that we don't currently know how to do, or we're just starting to play with at this point in time. So you're going to have like an air-to-ground version, and then you're going to have an air-to-air version. That's more or less the rundown on the weapons.
Roger. Yeah. Okay. The first thing I'm going to do is get in it and see how far I can loft a Meteor. see how far we can send it.
Test this.
Yeah. Okay, guys, that's excellent. And we're kind of ending here on a question, I think it was from me. F-35 mod progress. I mean, everyone's like, ooh, when's it going to be out? I know you can't say that, but just tell us roughly where you are with it.
Okay, nice. So the reason we've been biting our tongue as far as a deadline is concerned is deadlines are fairly hard to do, because you're dealing with a volunteer team. So, these I'm not paying these guys. So, they also have varying levels of free time. So, I don't want to throw at a deadline just for the sake of throwing at a deadline. I can give you a rough estimate. At the stage that it's at right now, a lot of the features had to be redone. And there needed to be reorganizing as far as what, recommitment of certain members of the team, recruitment of new members. And so normally if a mod would be at this stage, I wouldn't have even revealed it. But you kind of can't, close Pandora's box once you've opened it. And so, I understand that. So we are working on it. It's at a fairly basic stage at this point. We're retexturing it externally. We're retexturing it internally. Once that's done, we're going to start doing the cockpit coding. We're going to get it, again, an F-35A with a modified SFM in a similar structure and to a similar capacity to what we're trying to do with the Gripen right now. And then once we get our heads wrapped around the EFM, we're going to try to get a carrier-capable C version in there. We already have a model for it. And it's going to be, very similar to the A, and we're going to port the A over to EFM based on what we do with the C. So we have a roadmap. We are working, but these things take time, and they take a lot of time. So we're not really at the stage of pretty screenshots and cool videos yet. But it is being worked on. My goal is to get it to a point where we have something to release to the community. But a deadline wouldn't really be worth the virtual ink at this point in time. A year at least.
Roger. Okay, that's fine. Right, that's the end of my questions and everything myself and the valued viewers can think. I guess all I'd say to kind of wrap up is you've got you know, you've got the floor here to a few thousand people. You wouldn't usually maybe kind of reach. Anything you want to say about any modding, Gripen, F-35, anything, whatever?
I mean, I think we've covered more or less our bases.
We've done pretty good.
I think the DCS community is an awesome community. It's really amazing to see how like all these different branches have come out. You know, I've spent some time in an actual squadron. You know, I've seen like, you know, just making, you know, liveries has its own like community and competitions. By the way, we have a livery competition for the Gripen on the livery art Discord. I'll share a link with.
I heard about that from ED. Yeah, I learned about that from ED because they take them and put them in games sometimes. I know, so it's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, so they're doing something like that, and so we're doing that for our mod as well. We have a competition going. We've released the ED, the 3D model, and the template, so you can, you know, make something. You can look at it in Model Viewer. First place is you know, going to get a private dev version of the mod. And also we have like an air show. We're going to display it in the air show on the ground while we're doing a display. Second place winner and the first place winner will be part of the mod that we're going to release to the community in our package.
Roger. Great. Okay. Lanky, briefly, anything from you on the topic?
Well, I think I've said everything I wanted to say.
Lovely. No, that's fine, boys.
But yeah, other than what Vinedog said, all I can say is, you know, we can't wait to release the Gripen to you guys. For both version 1 and 2. And yeah, we can't wait for you guys to fly it and, you know, make some liveries. We want to see what you guys can make, so do your best.
Cool. Yeah, some proper skill guys out there doing that. Okay, guys, it was great to meet up with you and talk about that, and not just about talking about the single mod, but also talking about how things work in the background, generally speaking, and how people can get into it. Please, both of you, send me any links that you want linked, that you want to plug or advertise or whatever, and I'll put that on the video description, so go and have a look at that if you're watching this video. That's it, guys. Just nice guys to speak to. I love, for me, obviously I love the planes and doing all that stuff, but it's I love speaking to people that are just nice people and into the same hobbies as me. I think that's just makes it worth it, in my opinion. Right, guys, thank you very much for having you, and I will see you around.
All right, thanks for having us on.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers.